Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time, I'm coming your way to review a movie that I can't believe it took like 45 years for me to see. Honestly, I don't think I really even knew about it until just this year. A movie that came out in 1976, the same year I came out, uh, by the name of Drive-In. Very simple title for a very simple premise. Incidentally, there's another movie from I think the late 90s, early 2000s called Drive-In that I saw not long after it came out back on VHS and DVD back in the day. A basically shot on video movie that I'm pretty sure I reviewed on this channel years ago. So there's more than one movie called Drive-In. I thought that was the first movie called Drive-In, but no. There was a movie from 1976 called Drive-In, and I want to say this is right around the same time of Drive-In Massacre as well. So not only Drive-In, but Drive-In Massacre possibly the same year. I grew up with Drive-In Massacre, saw it for the first time with Keith at the age of 14, rented it from a video store. I only recently saw Drive-In from 1976 on Tubi. TV.com. I was very glad to see that it was an HD version. I guess this movie was originally distributed by Columbia back in the day. Admittedly, you can tell it's a very, very, very low budget kind of just slapstick, maybe not slapstick, but PG rated comedy. And honestly, maybe this movie would be a tad bit better if it was rated R with some boobies. Is that? Oh, that's the Charles Band phrase. I say bosoms. My phrase is bosoms. Charles Band says boobies, I say bosoms. Possibly some bosoms would have made this movie much better, but possibly not. There's some, attractive girls and that one main chick in, her little roller skating outfit, pretty attractive even with clothes on. So I guess, what I say, bosoms, doesn't necessarily gonna make this movie much better, but the movie basically is just about different groups of young people in this small, I think is this movie filmed in Texas? Very possibly. In this smaller Texas town, and all these different groups of young characters come together, and different groups of young characters that clash and do this and that, and this one redheaded guy who's, I don't think he's out to get women, but there's this one chick that breaks up with her boyfriend and wants a rebound guy right away, and redheaded guy's the guy, and he's got a really kind of a funny young brother, which reminds me a little bit of a childhood friend of mine. But yeah, honestly, probably my favorite thing about this movie is possibly that the redheaded guy's younger brother, just the kid actor, and the lines they gave him and stuff. Pretty funny stuff, but admittedly not a whole hell of a lot to see here. Mid-70s. It's nice to see like mid-70s, possibly Texas, operating Drive-In at the time. And just like with Drive-In Massacre from California, the Drive-In theater featured in this film has like the fence around the property. In Minnesota, when they put drive-ins out in the country and stuff, and the drive-in we used to frequent until unfortunately it might have shuttered its doors for good couple of years ago or whatever. The one we used to go to, I mean, they didn't bother. I've never been, I don't think, at a drive-in in Minnesota, drive-in theater that had the fence all the way around the theater. They just hoped that no one would just walk onto the premises and watch movies for free. But I guess when you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, the chance of that happening is slim anyway, so whatever. But probably the best thing about this movie was just the time capsule it is, and just seeing this operating, well, I don't know if it was operating, but this existing drive-in theater that is featured throughout the course of the movie. Actually, probably more like the last half of the movie. That's one of my complaints about it, is they don't really go to the drive-in until maybe halfway through the movie, and the second half takes place at the drive-in. Honestly, if you're a roller rink enthusiast, this movie has a big, huge roller rink scene as well. And I can remember, going to the roller rink probably with like the grade school class, on more than one occasion. And it being kind of fun at the time. I remember going around in circles with probably Michael Jackson playing on the speakers, and reminded me of that. Just like with drive-in theaters back in the day, there were all kinds of roller rinks back in when I grew up in the 80s and stuff as well. So, you know, as much as like it would have been nice to have more of the movie take place at the drive-in theater, it was kind of like unexpected and kind of an extra bonus to actually have like an extended roller rink scene. It's like, oh, okay, we got two, you know, nostalgic things of the past that don't unfortunately exist too much or as much anymore that permeate this movie. But, you know, what can I say about drive-in? It's just this and that and you know, whatever. And honestly, I found a lot of similarities between this movie and the late 90s, early 2000s film, or not film, but video movie of the same title, Drive-In. And, you know, possibly, I mean, I don't know if they would have been, you know, intentionally borrowed, but just because the drive-in, you know, horror movie thing shot on video from the late 90s, early 2000s has the same thing where it's different stories, but I mean, that's kind of what you got to do, I guess, to make a feature-length movie, but different stories and how they kind of connect or interconnect or whatever. One thing I do want to say about this movie is, of course, just like, well, unlike the late 90s, early 2000s film by the name of Drive-In, they actually were able to use, I guess with the, you know, permission obviously of Troma Entertainment, they were able to use some, you know, Troma films. It probably, I mean, I think, what's that one called? Terror Firmer, which I've never seen. Not a big Troma, not a big Troma fan. I mean, I like Toxic Avenger, but you know, in general, I'm not a big Troma fan. But it looks like they used a lot of Troma movies or one Troma movie or something for the actual movie playing on the, you know, the drive-in screen for the late 90s, early 2000s movie by the name of Drive-In. For this one, it was kind of fun, which I can only assume they filmed themselves. They basically have a movie, a fake movie, of course, that they had to make, you know, bits and pieces of for this film to be playing on the drive-in screen. And, you know, this is the 70s, so it's the decade of the disaster films. So their movie that's playing on, you know, on the theater screen at the drive-in theater in the film Drive-In from 1976 is Disaster 76, and it's kind of scary if you look at the theatrical poster that they also would have had to have made for the fake movie, you know, that their fake movie playing in this film by the name of Drive-In from 1976 actually shows a jet crashing into a tall building there. So if you know what I'm saying. And there's a scene, you know, where a model jet crashes into a tall building. So, if you know what I'm saying there, I don't know what the year of span of years between '76 and 2001, but someone could probably figure that out if they wanted to, but I don't want to. But yeah, I was gonna say that, but I'm not gonna. So, it's kind of funny because it's a really small, like, detail about this movie Disaster 76 is they kind of go through very subtly throughout the course of the last half of the movie when, you know, they're at the drive-in and Disaster 76 is playing on the screen. They hit like several beats of different disaster movies where they're making fun of Airport, then they're making fun, I don't know if I've seen all of them, maybe, you know, Earthquake or something, and then they're making fun of Jaws, and so they kind of go through the paces and make fun of some of the more famous disaster films that have, you know, of recent years that happened before this movie was made. So that was interesting. It wasn't just like a jet hitting a building. It was, you know, it was like 3 or 4 different disasters in this one movie called Disaster 76. So that was like an added bonus kind of, you know, charm or you know, quaint little aspect of this movie that I thought was interesting. Instead of just, you know, borrowing Troma movies or whatever, they actually made their own movie that they occasionally cut to on the drive-in theater screen. And you also get to see an authentic, you know, clip of an intermission thing, which oh my God, I am the biggest sucker for the drive-in theater intermission, you know, cartoons and reels and all this kind of stuff. So it was a really, you know, because I'm so freaking old that when I was a kid, when we went to drive-in theaters in the 80s and even into the 90s, and I think even into the early 2000s, some drive-in theaters were still playing these ancient freaking, you know, intermission cartoons and all this kind of stuff, and ads for, you know, ice cold soda pop and, you know, warm buttery popcorn, you know, footlongs, hot dogs, you know, or, you know, just all this kind of, you know, concession stand. Oh my God, I get goosebumps just talking about all these old corny ass, drive-in theater intermission, ads, cartoons, and commercials and that. But you also you get a brief glimpse of an authentic, intermission clip or whatever from back in the day as well. So that's cool. But admittedly, it's a low budget. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to not forget to mention. There's at least two people from this must have been filmed in the same vicinity as what's it called? Don't Look in the Basement. There's two people that I recognized from Don't Look in the Basement. The black guy, there's a kind of a token black couple in this movie, but the black guy who's like, I want to float my boat. Whatever he says, when do we get to put the boat in the water? From Don't Look in the Basement. That guy, and also like the woman, the older woman nurse with I don't know if she had the cat eye glasses on or whatever from Don't Look in the Basement. Those two performers are in this film, and also another face that I couldn't place it until later on. I'm like, oh, she was the cashier in Paper Moon. She's kind of got a maybe not the most attractive face kind of a character woman. I think she even, I don't know if they made fun of her by giving her this line, but she said something like in this movie Drive-In, something like, oh, Miss America or something, I can't remember. But yeah, she was in Paper Moon, which was also filmed I think in the southern southern part of North America or whatever. But yeah, it was interesting seeing some familiar faces. There was another guy that was kind of familiar. Oh, that was another thing. It's kind of like pre-Home Alone. There's two bandits, there's two losers, kind of like guys who are planning to rob the concession stand, of the drive-in. So you've got all these different, like, I guess, little details or different characters with their own agendas who all come together at the drive-in theater. And admittedly, not a whole hell of a lot really happens, but what the hell, it's a low budget movie, and just existing, being produced and released in 1976, just being that time capsule. I mean, the movie doesn't really have to do anything more than that. If there's nothing else that it really does, which it doesn't really do in my opinion, being like this time capsule for roller rink and drive-in theater and this kind of stuff, and just to see them, like those metal horsey swings, God, I want to say like something very similar, if not the exact same thing, were at some drive-in theaters around my neck of the woods in the 80s and stuff. So just seeing that stuff, even if the movie isn't frickin' really amazing or much of anything, just seeing that stuff was kind of interesting. So my star rating for Drive-In, from 1976B, it probably doesn't deserve this high of a star rating because it's mostly, not a whole lot of much of anything. But I can go as high as 2 stars out of 4 stars for Drive-In. And I looked, it's a bummer. Apparently, I don't know if you can, it's kind of a bummer because obviously like an HD version it exists on TubiTV.com, but I don't think it's on Blu-ray. And it looks like, I looked on eBay, it looks like it is on DVD. I don't know if it would be the HD version on DVD. It wouldn't be something I'd hate to own, honestly, but not obviously wouldn't want to pay a whole hell of a lot for it. But yeah, it was cool, if nothing else, like a time capsule, and like I say, some attractive girls and frickin' cute roller skating outfit. And oh, in closing, oh my God, there's such a thing as wearing out a joke. If you want to see a movie wear out a joke, watch this movie, because in my opinion, the furthest you should really take anything is 3 times. Whether it's like a scare or a joke or just whatever. Repeat something 3 times. You do it once, twice, thrice should be the end of it, in my opinion. There's this gag with this door of this van. Oh, that's another thing. The good old days of these, frickin' vans with the interior that is all frickin' carpet, ceiling, carpet walls, carpet floor, and waterbed in the van. Oh my God, it's such a shame that they don't make vans like this anymore. I'd probably, I'd consider actually, well, I was going to say it'd be fun to take the van to the drive-in theater, but there aren't no drive-in theaters close anymore. But yeah, if it were like the day of, I mean, a van is just the perfect thing to take to a drive-in theater, but just the era of, you know, back in the 70s when these vans were commonplace. I don't know when that started really. Was it kind of a trend of the 70s? It might have been more of like a late, you know, mid to late 60s, 70s kind of a trend that kind of maybe died out maybe in the 80s or whatever. But this movie also features like the, you know, this main character of, you know, this, you know, group of guys or whatever travel around in this guy's van, and early on at one point the door gets knocked off, and oh my god, talk about just taking a joke and just milking it to the point where you're actually getting angry at like, oh god, they're doing another bit with the door falling off, and it's like, how many times are you going to have the door fall off this van? And then I will say, you know, maybe it was a little comedic when finally the other door came off the other side, and it's like, okay, well that's maybe a little more funny. Don't just keep having the same door keep coming off. But God, yeah, if you want to get sloshed, if you're an alcoholic and you want to get sloshed and do a drinking game, just take a sip every time the door comes off. The same door comes off the van, you'll be sloshed or whatever alcoholics like to achieve or whatever. But I guess that'll be my review of Drive-In from 1976. It's got a cool, quaint little, you know, painting, drawn poster thing, and it's kind of, you know, fake advertising because you got voluptuous women in the painting slash drawing poster. And that's another thing. There's like this busty chick behind the counter at the concession stand, and she's probably just, you know, padded bra or whatever, because you don't see cleavage, and it's like, oh, give me a break. But I guess that'll be my review for Drive-In. It's crazy that this movie existed, you know, has existed the exact amount of years that I have, and it took 45 years for me to, oh wait, oh, I'm saying 45, oh, because Friday the 13th is 45 years old. Okay, it took more than 45 years for me to see this film, but we came together, and nothing really amazing happened, but that can happen with life. So I guess that about does it for, did I say 45 years already in this video, or was that the last video? I can't remember. If I said 45 years earlier, I meant, you know, whatever, the amount of years from this release of this film to now. That's the amount of years I meant. So you realize I can't bring myself to say how old I am out loud because I'm worried about my mental health. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, we'll catch you on the next video.